You wake up on the kitchen floor and the world has gone soft around the edges. The colors are muted. The far wall is slightly blurred. But you barely notice, because the floor is roaring with information. A person crossed this room earlier, and every fading footprint tells you which way they went. Another dog paused outside the front door before sunrise. There's bacon behind a cupboard, and the mail carrier who usually comes at noon hasn't been by yet. You didn't see any of it, you smelled it. And there's something inside those smells that a human brain can barely picture. The shape of the recent past. Hold on to that. By the end, it may explain something your humans have always mistaken for a miracle. Right now, though, your person has just walked out the door, and you have an entire world to read. You are the dog. Let's start with your nose. Except nose is the wrong word for what you have. Packed inside your nasal cavity are tens, even hundreds of millions of scent receptor cells, vastly more than the few million a human carries. And it isn't just the nose. A disproportionately large share of your brain is devoted to making sense of odor. Smell isn't a background detail added to the room after you walk in. It's one of the main ways the room gets assembled inside your head, in overwhelming, layered, three-dimensional depth, while the blurry picture your eyes hand you is only one part of something far richer. And how faint a trace can you catch? For certain odor molecules, trained dogs can detect extraordinarily tiny concentrations, sometimes down in the parts per trillion range. A smell a human would have to press right up to their face, you can catch drifting across a room or clinging to a shoe by the door hours after its owner has gone. You don't sniff the way a human does either. Your two nostrils work independently, each taking its own separate reading of the air. Because a scent often reaches one nostril a fraction before the other, your brain can compare the two and help work out which direction it came from. You smell in stereo. To you, an odor isn't simply there. It can carry the faint hint of an arrow pointing back toward its source. It's part of how you drop your nose to the grass and settle on a direction before you've taken a single step. And every breath is built to keep the search going. When you inhale, part of that air is routed through the densely folded olfactory region at the back of your nasal cavity. When you exhale, the used air slips out through the slits along the sides of your nostrils, puffing sideways, which actually helps draw fresh odor in toward the front instead of blowing it away. During a serious investigation, you may sniff several times every second, sampling the landscape of smell frame by frame. Your wet nose helps too, catching drifting molecules out of the air. So while a human takes one polite sniff of a flower, you've already read it a dozen times over. Which means, when you haul your human toward a battered lamppost and plant your feet, understand what's actually happening. That post isn't a gross thing you're weirdly obsessed with. It's the neighborhood's front page. Every dog that passed left a mark, and that mark can carry clues about identity, sex, reproductive state, condition, and roughly when the animal came by. The whole walk is like that. A squirrel's route across the lawn, a dropped French fry 3 gardens back, the neighbor's cat, another dog long gone. You're not being disgusting, and you're not just going to the bathroom. You're reading the news. And when you meet another dog nose to tail, you're not being rude. You're taking in that same flood of information in one breath. It's a handshake, a status update, and a neighborhood notice board, all at once, in about 2 seconds. And the people you live with cannot hide from you. When your human is calm, they smell one way. When they're frightened or stressed, their body quietly leaks a different mix of chemicals into their breath and their sweat. And you catch the change even when you can't see their face or hear their voice. In experiments, dogs exposed to nothing but the smell of human fear showed more stress-related behavior, faster heart rates, and more reassurance seeking from their owners. Their person's fear had begun changing them too. So when you lean your whole weight against someone on their worst day, you may not know what's wrong, but you smelled that something was, and it reached inside you too. Now back to the thing I told you to hold on to. The shape of the recent past. Here's how it works. The moment a scent is laid down, it begins to change. Molecules evaporate, spread, break apart, and mix with the ground. So a fresh footprint never smells quite like an older one. And you can read that difference. In one experiment, trained dogs could tell which way a person had walked from only 5 footsteps, but not from 3. Think about what that means. To you, a trail isn't a smudge on the floor. It's a line of moments, laid down in order, the recent past, still lying right there, waiting to be walked back through. And this same skill, reading older from newer, may be the thing that has you waiting by the door before it opens. But we're not there yet. And your nose reaches into places human medicine still struggles with. Because a body going wrong can start to smell different, researchers have trained dogs to tell apart odor samples linked to certain cancers, infections, and metabolic changes. Some assistance dogs even alert their people around episodes like a blood sugar crash or a seizure. Though how reliably and exactly which cues they're catching, scientists are still working out. It isn't magic. You're a biological detector whose full limits we don't yet understand. So here's the thing your humans call a miracle. Every evening, shortly before your person comes home, you're already waiting near the door. Maybe you heard a familiar engine before anyone else could. Maybe the light, the household routine, and your own internal clock have quietly taught you the hour. But there's another possibility. The scent your person left behind this morning has been changing all day, spreading, thinning, blending into the house. And you may have learned what that faint evening version of their smell is usually followed by a key in the lock, the door swinging open, and them. No experiment has ever proven that this is how dogs know. It's a fascinating hypothesis, not an answer. But it points at something that is true about the world you live in. A human walks into a room and sees what's there. You walk in and smell what happened before. And then it's over. You are human again. Tomorrow you'll clip a leash onto your dog and walk her past that same tired lamppost. You'll tug a little impatiently when she stops to sniff it for the 100th time. But now you know what she's doing down there. Reading the morning's news, catching who passed by and how they felt. Following the day laid out behind her in scent. The past has quietly taught her what usually comes next. Ordinary is only what that walk looks like, to the one of you who can only see it.